Good morning. My name is Benjamin Pion, and it is an honor to be speaking for you today. This space means a lot to me as well. This church means a lot to me as well, and I can't express my gratitude enough for this opportunity to share with you my own recovery. As another person, sorry, I'm used to AA meetings. As another person said, these steps are applicable to everyone. It actually says that on our basic text. It says, we realize that our way of life had its benefits for all. So behind me, I'm just going to focus on the 12 steps. You know, as an honor to our mission statement in the UU, that we seek spiritual growth wherever we can find it. This is how I achieve my spiritual growth, and I just want to bring that to you guys. So I just want you guys to, as I read how it works, which is a section of the big book, look at how many times alcohol is mentioned in the 12 steps. So our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get to it, then you are ready to take certain steps. These are the steps. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us, but there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. So, you might have noticed, it just says alcohol once. But the part where it does is the most important thing for people who have alcohol or addiction problems. We're powerless over alcohol and our lives have become unmanageable. The important part here is actually powerlessness, you know. And I just want you to remember that as I go through this. The condition, really what is summed up in the big book, which is this not so big book over here, is the condition for an alcoholic or a drug addict is hopeless without God. And we actually spend a lot of time veering away from the whole God thing because a lot of people who come into recovery, including myself, are very opposed to the God idea. As my sponsor told me at one point, and there's this quote in the book, nothing worked, but the God idea did. And I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous without probably the most devout atheist you would ever meet in your life, and that is not an exaggeration at all. Any amount of spirituality on any level, any amount of faith, I was directly opposed to. I considered myself a man of science, but I probably can't tell you how an electrical current works. But I do know that the light bulb turns on. I have faith that the light bulb will turn on. There's a bunch of stuff in this book that kind of points out how unscientific an atheist perspective can be. And how, like, we have faith in things, including myself. I had faith in things that I really didn't have any firm grasp or understanding of. But when it came to the God idea, I just shut it out, and I continued to drink. I came into Alcoholics Anonymous for about 2.5 months without the God idea, and I relapsed 7 times. The second the God idea came up, we're getting into step 2 now, that's when I started to experience results. So I'm just going to share a quote on step 2. And step 2, just to reiterate, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And this is a quote that later on, like after I had already had my step 2 experience where I was willing to believe in a power greater than myself, I got turned back to, and I saw like what happened. We found that as soon as we were able to set aside prejudice and express even a willingness to believe in a power greater than ourselves, we commenced to get results. Just a willingness, and that's exactly what happened to me. Like nothing else worked, and my sponsor laid it out clearly for me. He's like, look at your life, man. Like, why don't you give this a shot? He actually said, if you go through the 12 steps and you don't like it, you can just throw them out. And I was like, all right, that sounds good to me. I'll give them a shot. It's felt like a challenge, honestly, because we'll get into the condition of an alcoholic later, but when you challenge me, I'm going to rise to the occasion. Step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. So, turn our will. It sounds like a really big thing, and it is. But the thing is, the condition of the alcoholic is hopeless, and my will, repeatedly, brought me to a point of not only drinking, but ruining my life over and over and over again. So it's really black and white for me as an alcoholic. Either I live a life of these spiritual principles, or I die, and I have to be a man of faith, a man who taps into this power of infinite knowledge and love and peace, or it doesn't look so good. So the first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. And that's really what it's about, right? That self-will had not worked out for me. Me figuring out my own thing, my self-reliance had never worked. I continued to be at this place of bottom. This selfishness, this self-centeredness led to drinking, and it led to my life being pulled down into the gutter. And I was left with this option of jumping off. Essentially, it felt like jumping off a bridge for me as an atheist, to give my life to something that I didn't understand. It says, as we understood him, I didn't know anything. And to be honest, coming up on 18 months later, I know even less. I just have a lot more belief, a lot more faith that my higher power does exist and that it does care for me. But that kind of brings us back to the turnaround, is what I call it. Coming back to step 1 after going through step 3, after turning my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand him, it really takes like the alcohol out of the subject. It really takes alcohol out of step 1 entirely, because my problem is not alcohol. Drinking is but a symptom. My problem is my selfishness. My problem is my self-centeredness. My problem is my dishonesty. And as a result of those things going down the line, I found this medication, and our illness must be pretty bad because the prescription is God. That was a joke. But this line really sums it up really well, like the actual condition of the alcoholic or drug addict, the person who needs these quick fixes, these materialistic things, whatever it may be. There's 12-step organizations all over the world at this point. This book was written in 1939. There's Gamblers Anonymous, Sex Addicts Anonymous, bunch of other stuff. And really, I feel grateful that I had the opportunity to go through the 12 steps, and that I'm someone who was desperate enough to, because I don't feel like anyone's going to go through, particularly the steps we're about to get into, 4 through 9, if they aren't particularly desperate. Because our steps, we say in the rooms that they're that they're simple, but they're not easy, and we're going to get into why, but it takes a particularly desperate person like I have been and continue to be willing to do this work. So I'm actually going to read the step 3 prayer because there are a lot of good prayers in this book. So if you would join me. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I might better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. So we're getting into the working steps now. And step 4 has a bit of a reputation. Made us searching for fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Essentially what that looks like is writing, there are 3 parts to it. You write a resentment inventory, everyone that you resent, currently or in the past. And the hard part for me to see even to this day is the last column. So I write the person's name, why I resent them, what it affects. Now these last 2 parts are really what gives the truth out of it. What does it affect? It usually affects my pride and my ego the most. If someone cuts me off in traffic and I'm taking an honest look at my anger in that situation, what is it really affecting? I live on an island. It takes 20 minutes to get anywhere here. I mean, stretching it. Maybe at the Triangle, I don't know. But the only thing it's really affecting, the only thing that action affected is really my pride and my ego. I think I'm so important that I have to get through the Triangle this quickly, and this New Yorker in a white BMW cut me off, But the only thing that affects is my pride and my ego, and to take a look at the selfishness. This is the last column, my mistakes. To take a look at the last column and say my selfishness and thinking that I'm better than this person because I drive a truck and that's an automatic, or my self-centeredness to think that I need to get here now and not considering any of the other person's stuff. That's really the root of all of this, is the selfishness and self-centeredness that I produce on a daily basis to this day. And weeding that out through the work and continuing to make growth is difficult. And to tell someone who has a few months of sobriety and it's not going so great, because to be honest, we drink for a reason, walk into the rooms, and you take away that medication, it's rough. But you doing this work, doing the thing that I don't want to do, the last thing I wanted to do when I was out there was take an honest look at my own behavior, have the humility to say I'm being selfish right now. I am being self-centered. I am being dishonest. I don't want to do anything. That's why I'm dishonest. It's very difficult work. And the other parts of the inventory are fear, and some people call it the sex inventory. I call it the conduct inventory. And the fear inventory is really the root of all of these things. The traffic situation. It's blowing up this thing in my mind that I'm scared of what people think of me. I'm scared of but I'm protecting this not real idea. My ego is not a real thing. It's not a tangible thing. It's this image in my mind that I have created for myself, that I am this person. Everyone has to know exactly what this imaginary thing is in my mind. The reality is that what other people think of me is none of my concern. And to really do little actions throughout the day and continue to be of service to people is really where things start to improve. And the conduct inventory is really taking a look at, without any of those resentments or anything, I'm just taking a look at a relationship. And that relationship can be with my job, it can be with tourists on Martha's Vineyard, it could be whatever. That's why I call it conduct, not sex inventory. It does fit really well into relationships, and at the end of it, we write an ideal for what that relationship should look like, and I turn that into a prayer. Many of you know that I have a girlfriend who attends this church, and every morning I wake up and hopefully say that prayer to remind myself of the person that I should be for her, to not have a selfish relationship, to not look at her as something that I can get something out of, or that she should be a certain way or whatever. I have to show up to be of service to her every single day, because that's what she deserves. And then step 5 is just sharing it with another person. A lot of people have their spiritual experiences in step 5. I have mine in step 3. But that's really the goal of all of these steps, is to have a spiritual experience powerful enough to remove the obsession with alcohol. I got mine in step 3, and I haven't thought about a drink since. That being said, I've continued to do the work. And it is a promise that if we don't do the work, we will return to that person. And recently I actually got pretty close. I stopped doing the maintenance steps, we call them. The last 3 is what keeps us up to date. And that selfish and self-centered person came back. I thank God, and I mean that literally, thank God, that I did not ever have the compulsion to drink, the thought to drink, the urge to drink, nothing like that. But it really set me back that it had been so long since I had seen that person. That person's still there, and it'll return if I don't stay honest, if I don't continue to take a look at this stuff, and if I don't have a conscious contact with my higher power. And step 6, I hope I'm being of use. I'm just going to say the prayer. When ready, we say something like this. My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here, to do your bidding. Amen. And as I'm going through inventory, as I'm talking to my sponsor, as I pray for I call them shortcomings of character. That's from a Women's Guide to the 12 Steps, which is a very useful book, because it's more accurate. There are certain defects of character, like pride, that are bad in some situations but good in others. And when things get in the gray area, that's where I really need God. That's what I have to pray for, because for me, it has to be black and white. It can't be anything in the gray area, because I'll take an inch and I'll go a mile with it. If there's any sort of muddling, then things are going to really get muddled up here, and I'm going to take it too far, because that's just the person I am. And then step 8 and 9, which is actually something I've been focusing a lot on since I met my current sponsor in Baltimore. These are the steps. First of all, I just want to highlight step 9 right here, this part, except when to do so would injure them or others. I heard some conversation going on when this was up here and we were sitting in the church, and it seems like a lot of us, well, I'm an alcoholic, but it seems like a lot of people in this room have been affected by alcoholics and drug addicts. And maybe this is the most visual part of AA. You've had an amends, or you've seen amends, or you've heard of amends, but this is a really important part, and this is a part where it gets muddled, because that little inch of I might be able to injure them, I can take that so far, and I'm just not making amends to people who deserve them, So my current sponsor gives me the advice of throwing it up to God, praying about it, doing what we call the approach. Is when I text the person, hey, do you want to meet? I don't say it like that. I say, I hurt you a lot, and you deserve a conversation. But throwing it up to God and, really having an honest conversation with someone that I have harmed, that, it's been very difficult at times. There are situations where, to this day, I think that person has harmed me more than I harmed them. But that's not what it's about. It's about gaining that spiritual growth through humility. It's about doing the hard thing. It's about looking that person in the eye with these feelings, and that's where spiritual growth is for me. It's in the things that I don't want to do, because my direct instinct for my entire life has been none of this stuff, none of these principles, you know, and having faith that they will work was how it initially happened, but now I have the experience, you know, because I've sat down with people that I feel that they have harmed me more than I have harmed them, or people that I really harmed and then just had either really beautiful experiences or not. It kind of doesn't matter. What I really get from it is like the humility is the spiritual growth, you know, like sucking that up, sitting with the person, praying to God, making conscious contact, and then doing justice to things that I've done in my past, wiping clean like their side of the table, even if just for a second, to just get my side clean. Like that's where like I'm able to exist in a point of peace when I do the work. And then steps 10, 11, and 12, it's going along a little longer than I wanted. But steps 10, 11, 12, it's basically these steps, the rest of the working steps summarized. It's really important that I continue to keep up with that stuff. I do personal inventory. I write a lot of different personal inventory now as part of my step 10. My nightly review is like very intensive based on current things that I'm going through. You know, if I'm currently struggling with anger, I'll actually like mark down on my phone like what time something happened on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad it was it. And then that will be a part of my nightly review for the next couple weeks. The important part of inventory, and I swear to God, I'm going to get away from this microphone soon. The important part of inventory is like taking an earnest look at our stock. You know, like I don't know what I'm working with unless I write it down and I take a look at it. You know, I don't know what kind of person I am because this idea in my head, this ego, is just not the truth. You know, like if I took an honest look at my behavior over the next 365 days, and then I take a look at that as a whole, then I have an idea of who I am and who I'm showing up as. You know, and my recovery is about knowing that I can't do better. Knowing that I will continue to show up as that same person that was here on the island drinking 2 years ago. But tapping into an infinite power of love and understanding, that has given me success. You know, it's a very, someone told me yesterday, I was at a party where a lot of people were drinking. He said, I grabbed a Coca-Cola and he said, wow, keeping it clean and sober. I love your willpower. And I was like, I don't have any. You know, I said, it's never been me. And that's the honest truth of this stuff, is that there is a power greater than me that exists outside that I have no understanding of. It's the honest truth that has given me a life beyond my wildest dreams. So thank you. Thank you.